Hello again, friends. Following up on the amazing response to the publication of our first asseveration, here's now an explanation of how you can do this yourself in your own country. I'm going to do my best to keep this short and succinct, guys. Please bear with us. First of all, guys, there's two main things to know. There's the foundation process to create a document like this, and then there's the use of the document itself. The first thing you need to do in your own country is to look at the legislation that your government has used to bring in the emergency measures. Again, bear with me, guys. I have to be diplomatic about the language I use in order to keep reaching as many people as we can on this platform. So you examine the legislation that your government has used and find one clause, guys. It only needs to be one clause that is clearly fraudulent, misleading, that can be voidable, and these are the sort of words that have power in law. Okay? Now, once you have found that particular clause, you then find the evidence to disprove that clause, and you serve it on your elected officials, whatever authorities you need to. It can be anyone from the local school board to the president of your country. Okay, that's for you to decide. Once you've done this, you invite them to rebut, disprove, or disqualify the evidence that you've sent into them. If they fail or refuse to do that, you allow them 3 attempts, and I think a reasonable amount of time. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be giving them more than a week, given the severity of the circumstances and the mortal danger that everybody is in at the moment. I wouldn't be wasting too much time about this, because they do already know, and if they don't, then there's no excuse for it at this point. But all of the authorities around the globe are aware of what's really going on. And what we need to do is put them right on the spot so that they have no room to maneuver and no space to continue to lie, deceive, and mislead us. Okay? So you put them on notice once, twice, 3 times. Why? Because there's a principle that is, it's a Latin term, qui tacit consentit videtur, or something like that. I'll put it up on the screen. Silence implies consent. It's a legal principle. Don't underestimate it. Okay, it's still being used at the highest levels of international government, the United Nations, and so they use this maxim on a regular basis in their legislation and lawmaking. So it has the power of law. Don't underestimate it. So let's say, and let's assume, that nobody can disqualify or rebut the evidence and the proofs you've put in that demonstrate that a particular clause is unlawful. Okay, it has no validity. And again, look at the asseverations, guys. You'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so now that you've established that the issue under question has been proved invalid, and you have served them 3 times, you have now established, and of course you have to word the letter accordingly. The accompanying letter you send into the authorities must, of course, say, if you fail and refuse to respond, or if you fail to rebut, then we are going to do whatever you're going to do. And of course, I'm suggesting to you and to everybody out there that you use the model that we've got here and you produce your own asseveration. Now, we happen to have established under Irish law and the Irish Constitution 2 bodies that have the lawful authority to issue these asseverations. And it's taken us years to establish this platform because, of course, we had a lot to learn in the process. But eventually, we were able to set up the People's Tribunal over here on the right. I'll pop it up one side here. We were able to establish the People's Tribunal of Ireland on the basis that the Irish authorities were not providing us with the rule of law in this country. But keeping it simple, guys, this could just as well be the Kildare Ladies Knitting Club that issues this asseveration, provided they use the same foundation documents that we have done in this state. In other words, they refer to the various books. I'll pop them up here now on the screen, which are the foundation documents for what we're doing. However, the simple fact alone, if you can identify that there is a fundamental flaw especially if the statement, the legislation that is enforcing these emergency measures and all of the things that go with it, if that is flawed, if it is misleading, if it is deceptive, it is false, and so on, which I think is relatively easy to prove now, then you have the authority to issue an asseveration, which is a statement of fact and truth, that will permit you and anybody else who wants to use it the right not to comply with that legislation. Now, let me explain another principle for those of you who may be hearing this for the first time. Please, please, I'm very aware that this has generated a huge amount of interest all over the world. Thousands, and I mean, it's over 100,000 reach, and 6, 7, 8, 10,000, no, 50,000, I can't, anyway guys, it's huge numbers. Clearly there's an appetite for this, okay? The interest that's been generated in these asseverations has been massive, which I'm glad to say, because it means that people are waking up. Okay, but as I said, if you can identify that there's a fraudulent or false clause, you can issue certificates under this QTC process, or simply on the basis that it is fraudulent. But you've got to be careful here, guys, because if you just write out, let's say, an asseveration and carry it with you and walk into your local shop, let's say in Australia or the United States or Canada or Great Britain or wherever, you're facing the argument with, let's say, the shopkeeper that, oh no, you're not allowed to do this, you have to put a mask on, and you say, oh no, the law has changed. Well, has it really? Because if you do it correctly and follow the system that we've used, the law has changed. If you just go in half-cocked with a document saying they're lying, they say, yeah, so what? What are you going to do about it? Well, they're lying, the clause in the legislation isn't valid. Yeah, so what? You end up then having to take it into your courts, and if you're anything like Ireland, you're facing a long, lengthy, convoluted and highly biased and prejudicial process, and you can be assured, again, if it's anything like Ireland, that the judges are going to come down on the side of the establishment and the big pharma companies and stuff like that. So please try and follow the model that we've used, and this will work. So you're talking about a process that could take as little as 3 weeks. You send 3 different notices, send them to all of the authorities that you need to, or pick them perhaps just on your health minister, because the health ministers are locked into the World Health Organization and the World Health Assembly, okay? So you can maybe just target that one person. And on the basis then of them being unable to rebut what you've done, you then move ahead and issue an asseveration and declare the law to be changed. It's as simple as that, okay? Now, obviously you'll have to look into your own legislation. I can't possibly, start examining all the different laws, but those of you who are what they call common law countries, in other words, if you have any links or ancient links to England or Britain in particular, or the Commonwealth, that sort of thing, you should find very similar laws, okay? Now, next step. Yes, now, the paper itself, again, it's not a magic wand, guys. What it is partly, it's designed to flush out the lies, okay? Now, I can tell you how we can use it here in Ireland, okay? What we will do is we'll also generate a small pass that everybody can print off, laminate, sign it and laminate and keep in your pocket, so you're not having to carry around a cumbersome A4 piece of paper. We'll do a pass, but it'll make reference to that single page asseveration, which in turn is just a condensed version of the question and the answer on the larger, in our case, a 4-page asseveration. And that's because we just had to put in all the legalities. It's up there online for anyone, so that in the event there is a challenge to what we're doing, we've got it all ready to go. And again, if I can explain this to everyone, don't get your minds all mixed up and convoluted and confused with legalese and jargon. This is a simple premise, really simple premise. And I'll explain this one more time, guys, just so it hits home. If I'm walking down the street with my friends and the friends say, Stephen, we're going to go into the shop and rob it. Are you coming? And I say, no, I can't do that because it would be a crime. All right, now just think about this in a slightly different way. You have a policeman walk up to you and he says, you must do this. And you know that what he's telling you to do is a crime. You see, this is the key. You identify the crime. Now, I can tell you right now, guys, that there are massive, wholesale, global crimes being committed by, at the moment, on the population, on the world's population. You all know what I'm talking about. Massive global crimes of the worst order. The fact that they're being done by stealth and deception and the manipulation of the media is neither here nor there. Just because it isn't a literal gun pointed at our heads, or our heads aren't being chopped off literally with all the blood and the mess that goes with it, does not detract from the crimes that are in action at the moment. But what we have to do is we have to flush out the lie, because we have to capture all of the apathetic people out there. Partly because we need a large amount of people to understand clearly what's going on. And secondly, because they are our brothers and sisters, and we have to at least try our best to save them. Spirit, mind, and body, guys. All right? Now, I'll try and wrap this up quick. I hope that's enough information. Just one moment. Oh yes, good news came in yesterday. There's a case being taken in New Zealand. My apologies, I haven't got the exact details, the name of the person and everything, but there was a case taken in New Zealand that was won. The New Zealand government, the New Zealand courts have declared that the government cannot make the injectables mandatory because of the wording in the legislation, again, which talks about study groups and control groups. And the decision of the court was along the lines that, well, if you're talking about mandatory vaccination to the whole population, that is not a control group. And it's on little things like this, guys, that we can gain some leverage. Don't lose hope. You'll hear me keep saying to you, we have to fight. We have to take a stand. This is no less than the eternal battle between good and evil. It's a bit hard to explain in a very short video, guys, but that's why we wrote this book, okay? The Crisis Call or Coup book, I'll put it up again on the side. It's written there to get everybody to understand how we've arrived at a place where there are more people with wicked, selfish, evil intent in the corridors of power and heading up these major international corporations than at any other time in history. And they have literally seized global control of everything that responds to power. We have to make them redundant. We have to make them obsolete. We have to take the power off them, and this is how we'll do it. And I'll finish up by explaining very briefly, guys, the single page version of this asseveration, just for those who may be thinking, what on earth is going on here? Those of you who are not sure, please scroll down, look at the other couple of videos that we've put out in the last couple of days, and because this is literally, guys, it's a matter of life and death. We've got to, this is the test for each one of us. Am I truly humane? Or am I no better than a beast? Absent a spirit, a conscience, a mind, a soul that cares for his brothers and sisters all around the globe. Let me just read this to you guys. The question is as to the legality and the lawfulness of the legislation in Ireland under the Emergency Measures Act. We then explained that it was brought to the Integrity Ireland Commission. They've examined it, and they have then drafted a document which is 4 pages. You can see at these links that I'm putting up, guys. And this is the conclusion. 3 sentences, guys. Please listen carefully. The grounding clause in the Health Preservation and Protection and Other Emergency Measures in the Public Interest Act is a false and fraudulently misleading statement. Nice and clean and easy. Number 2, as such, it is both voidable and void ab initio, void from its beginnings, and therefore cannot carry the weight of law, nor give rise to any dependent legislation, rules, regulations, or legally enforceable guidelines. And finally, absolutely key, guys, any person who knowingly facilitates, complies with, or enforces the said void legislation in knowledge that it has now been rendered lawfully void and invalid, commits an unlawful and possibly criminal act. Now, I'm not saying, guys, that you can walk out there and wave a sheet of paper or a pass and the whole Red Sea is going to part in front of you. No, not at all. This is a challenge of our courage, guys. This is a challenge of everybody waking up and saying, this is plain and simple common sense. We've now identified a massive crime being perpetrated on humanity with the active facilitation of corrupted officials and office holders in our various countries. We have got to do something about it. Otherwise, we're just lemmings to the slaughter. We have to do something about it. Now, I'm saying if there's only one thing that you can do while you're still sitting there scratching your heads, or if you're one of those people, one of those good, decent, honourable people who is still believing the lies of the establishment, I'm asking and begging you, please, get this book and read it. It's packed full of the facts, the data, and the proofs about our current circumstances, but more than that, it walks us through from the beginnings of human history in simple terms, right through to the point where a cabal of diabolicals have literally taken over all of the institutions of the world and have very, very poor intentions for the rest of us. Okay? Now, I'll finish here, guys, by flashing up on the screen 2 documents which I've put out before, 2 image documents as I'm talking. Please freeze the screen and examine these. The first one is the model of how the world is sort of balanced between empaths, decent people, and sociopaths and psychopaths, with a big crowd of apaths, apathetic people who don't care, in the middle. What's really going on, however, is the second image. And the sociopaths and the psychopaths are running the show. We have to disempower them, guys. We have to make them redundant. We have to make them obsolete. And the way to do it is in here, guys. Please, please get a copy if you can and help us keep pushing this mission. And finally, guys, I just make a simple comment. There are a few trolls attacking us here. Very few. I think out of something like 1,300 active comments, I think 6 of them out of 1,300 are some, let's say, well, some of them are clearly, fools, agent provocateurs who are trying to annoy you. Don't buy into it. Like I say, disempower them. This is what we're telling you to do also with corrupt authority figures. Stop it. Stop voting for them. Stop funding them. Stop talking to them. Okay? Once you recognize they're sociopaths and psychopaths, cut them out of your life. That's how we have beaten a corrupt judiciary over here. We just tell them, sorry, you are now committing a crime, judge, whether it be a violation of your oath of office, whether it be a contempt of your own court, whether it be a breach of my fundamental rights. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to continue to play with you and facilitate that crime. So, sayonara, see you, all right? We need to start doing the same. And finally, to quote a great and inspirational source that all of us would be very familiar with, never mind the trolls and the denigrators. Ignore them and indeed even pity them, for they know not what they do. Thank you for listening, guys.